Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. I'm here today with Renita D Davis. The three most popular benefits of embracing change in your life are personal growth, new opportunities, and increased adaptability. At the forefront of this transformative journey is Renita D Davis, a strategic concept executor dedicated and committed to ensuring you never walk alone. Renita understands that every individual's needs and circumstances are unique, and as such, she tailors her approach to align perfectly with her clients' unique requirements. By working closely with her clients, Renita helps entrepreneurs and families discover their strengths, conquer challenges, and unlock their full potential. What you can expect is a collaborative and empowering coaching experience, one that focuses specifically on holistic coaching, advocacy, and educational support. Renita brings extensive expertise to the table, combined with a compassionate approach. With her guidance, you'll find the support you need to navigate the path of change and realize the tremendous benefits it can bring to your life. Welcome to the show, Renita.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. So glad to be here. It's a long
How does it
time
feel? Yes, it is. We've tried this a few times,
coming.
but I'm glad we were able to do it today. So today's the best day to do it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Renita, reading your bio and saying your name repeatedly during the reading of it, I was like, am I talking about myself? It was a little discombobulating, even though this is such a great bio. You have done some amazing things. How does it feel, or what has been your experience meeting other Renitas in your lifetime?
You know, I've always thought I was the only one. When I
Me
was
too.
younger, nobody had the name, and I used to feel so alone, right? Because I didn't have the Tracys or the Sallys, or, I couldn't, as close as I would get is I had a friend. She just recently passed away. Her name was Bonita, Bonita. And so we would call each other twin all the time because that was about as close as we were going to get. Um, but meeting other Renitas, and I've done a lot of them. I've met a lot of them through LinkedIn. I see the name, and so I usually tap on it. Hey, my name is Renita too, and it's very exciting. I know they're not doppelgangers, but it's just that I have someone that I can say that I have a kindredness to, because I went as far as even just looking up my name trying to figure out what it means. And what I found when I was looking it up is that Anita is birth, and I'm Nita, so but I am Nita, so I am reborn or born again. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got that. And I think about my life, and I know we're not in that yet, but I think about how my life is totally evolving. And I'm like, yeah, I'm being reborn over and over and over again. This is just amazing. But yeah, yeah. So it's always exciting to meet another Renita.
Renita, can I tell you, I just recently, which is so weird because I love looking at meanings of words, that's my thing. But
Hmm.
I just recently looked up my name and it absolutely said reborn. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, that's interesting. But the way you just described it of being reborn over and over and over, I'm
Hmm.
like, that was so beautiful. And that is absolutely it. And yeah, that's what our names mean as
Yeah,
reborn.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
born again. And it was so cool because I think it was a couple of years ago, my husband and I were in Georgia, and we went to this thrift shop or something. And I had on this t-shirt that I had found, and it's born squared. So it's the word born, and then it's got the two for the squared, right? So I'm born again. And I was talking to a gentleman, and I was like, yeah, this is my name. you know so
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking around with born again on my name, on my shirt, and I know that it means me. I mean, like, it really means me.
It literally
Yeah,
means you. Isn't that
and
cool?
that was just so cool for me. So yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And the other identical thing that a part of your story, the only other Renita I knew was a very similar Bonita, Bonita, as well. She was my best friend from the time I was in junior high up until we graduated. I was in her wedding and
Oh,
everything. And
wow.
so the
Yeah.
fact that you also had a Bonita, I was like,
Yeah.
me too. I had a Bonita as well.
Yeah. There's a
And I
purpose and a plan for everything. I promise.
absolutely. And so to meet you, to just recently have looked up the meaning of the name, to have a Bonita, oh, that just feels like so synchronistic. I
Yeah.
do want to pause for a moment and give my condolences to the loss of your friend, though.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it was sudden. It was
Mm,
really sudden. And I suddenly, because I don't believe she was still in the state. She had moved someplace else. So I would peep at her through Facebook, and then all of a sudden, the next peep that you get, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I am not seeing this." But I really was. Yeah. So,
yeah.
and we were elementary school and
Wow.
junior high. Yeah.
Wow. Well, my condolences and just holding space for her right now in
Yep.
this
Yep.
moment.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Renita, I almost called you Benita. What did you most like? What did you want to be most like when you were growing
Oh gosh.
up?
When I first thought about growing up, I wanted to be a baby doctor, a pediatrician. I wanted to be a baby doctor so bad. I mean, that was just all that I could think. I wanted to do that. Um, yeah, I wanted to be a pediatrician. So ask me how it changed from there to go into social work is amazing. But yeah, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to help people. I wanted to take care of the babies. I think what scared me was all the science that I had to go
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I had to find out that I had to birth those babies, I was like, I don't know if this is what I really want to do now. But yeah, it has always been, a pediatrician. So, but my love for children and my, wanting to always be there to serve and to help them has never changed. I just do it
It found
differently.
an outlet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
found an
found an
outlet.
outlet.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what? I actually have a client who's a black midwife and she calls it catching babies and she loves catching
Yeah.
babies. Yes.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is she won't touch a fish. So it's so interesting the things we're like, okay, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to get all up in your brain and learn all about your emotions, but I'm not touching no baby.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly, exactly. Wow.
That is fun. All right. I am so excited about getting into your social work journey. We have the same name. We've had similar friends with the same name, but I think that our journeys into social work are going to be different. I don't know, but let's find out. So tell me, Renita, a little bit about your social work journey. How did you get here?
Ah,
And where do you want to go? What are your plans?
well, how did I become a social worker? It actually is my daughter's fault. And the reason I say that is because I started out in psychology when I married at 25. So I was kind of young. And I wanted to make sure that I raised my child right. I wanted to know as much as possible. So I went to college. It's an old college that is no longer here, but it was called Barra College, Barat, Barrett College. And the cool thing about Barra College is that the staircase in the library was actually used in an old movie. Okay. But anyway, so I went to Barra and I decided I wanted to learn psychology, right? And I wanted to do child psychology, child development, because I wanted to learn. And so I did that, took the classes, got my degree, and it evolved from there to just always knowing or wanting to know why people did things. And I found that people always came to me and talked to me. And so the journey to psychology kind of flipped. And I said, you know what? I can do the same thing in social work because what I really want to do is help people. What I really want to do is help guide people. And I really like to advocate for people. Psychologists don't really get to do that too much. So that's how it shifted. I then went to get my master's in social work, and I got my 73. I got my type 73, so I was able to work in the school system.
You're going to have to explain to me what that means because I've never heard of that. You know, we're from different states. But
Okay,
before you explain to me what that means, how did you even learn about social work? Because here you are, psychology is very common. A lot of people go
right,
into psychology, but a lot of people don't even know you can do all of the things you're talking about
through
in
social work.
social work.
I think I talked to my advisor, and because I was an adult, I was a mom at this point, and really all I wanted to do was just do this. I just wanted to learn about child development, and that kind of sparked my journey to search for more. And in that search, talking to counselors and all of that, that's when I learned about how I could do these things in with a social work degree, right? And then I started meeting social workers and seeing what they do, and I'm like, that's it, you know.
So you didn't have any preconceived notions about social workers like some people. You had never heard of it, and but then you got to meet some, and you're like,
And then
now I'm home.
yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that is what I want to do. And so from there, and when I went to Aurora University, George Williams School of Social Work, and in there you have two tracks. You can either go public or you can go educational. I decided I wanted to go education because, again, I'm still about the child development, I'm still about the babies. And so I wanted to go into the schools because growing up, I saw the need. And one day I was in church, and my former pastor, he was giving a message, and just as loud as I'm talking to you, he was talking about helping people and being that advocate in the need, right? And just as loud as I'm talking to you, I heard this voice says, that's why I have you in social work. And I literally had to turn around and say, now who's talking to me, right? It was just that audible. And so I knew I was on the right path, that this is where I was supposed to be. So I do have my master's, and through my journey in the school system, I decided I wanted to be in administration. So most people, they go to the LCSW. I really didn't want to do LCSW because that was so more diagnostic, and I never wanted to really diagnose a child. I never wanted to have that on my conscious that I said this child has that, and then write, prescriptions or whatever. And that was another reason that kind of turned me from psychology as well, because again, you would have to label, and I just did not want to label because I always believed that there is a potential for growth and there's a potential for change. So I couldn't see myself doing those things. So I got my master's, and from there uh, I went to what was it, American College of Education, and I got, oh wait a minute, back up, Type 73. So the Type 73 is a license that I would be able to work in the schools. Okay, so because you have two tracks, so I got my license so that I would be able to work in the school system, and that was fine for me. That was all I wanted in life. And as I continued, I've been 20 plus years in the school system, and I realized that a part of that was also helping families. I am really good at turning things around for families. I'm really good at listening and de-escalating things. So I think in when COVID hit, I was promoted to the director of special ed. Okay. I mean, sorry. I was coordinator. Sorry, I was coordinator, but I was also the director because we had no director. So I was doing both, right? At the time, because there was all this COVID transition and whatnot. But so in that, I was also going to school to get my my principal certification, because I realized that I'm really good at working with families and being in the community. And so I wanted to impact more than just one child at a time. How about if I can impact the families, right? So being in that position, I was able to, impact more people. And that's what I liked about it. I'm not just, putting a band-aid on one child's issue, or working them through their problems. I actually now have access to the whole family. One of the things that I used to do and I'm known for was during the IEP meetings. And, most times, if you ever see the dynamics of the IEP meeting, there's the parent, and then all around the whole table, all these people that look like they're supposed to know something, the teachers, all of these people that are in charge of your child. And I would watch the parent, and I could see that, number one, they were scared. Number two, they really didn't know all of those acronyms that were being floated around. So I took it upon myself to always ask the questions so that they wouldn't have to say they didn't know, but they would hear the answers, right? And I was really good at, after the conversation, I would always tell the parent, oh, you know what? I need to show you something. Can you come with me to my office? And then I would read them sister to sister, girlfriend to girlfriend. This is what you need to do. Right. I would equip them. If I had to reprimand them, pat them on the hand a little bit, you need to step it up. This is not right, but you can do something about it. So I was always encouraging. I never ever had a bad problem with that. They were always able to receive from me. So I understood my assignment. And so that was the place that I worked in. And I just recently retired. This is my year two. And that's my social work journey. I mean, there's a lot of other things. I was always being put in the community. I remember one year, one school that I was at, they didn't pay me, but I was told that I was going to be, that over the summer, they needed a social worker. So Renita, can you? And I was so eager and excited. I'm like, sure, sure. So during the summer, I was doing home visits. I was working with, all of this stuff that I should have been paid for. But because of my willingness and my eagerness to help and serve, I got all of this experience and stuff. And so now I'm in a space where, I have excellence. And I don't say that to brag, but I say that proudly because of all the knowledge that I've received, because they put me in places, one that should have been for more than one person, but they always give us the extra, right? And they don't realize that when you give me the extra, I will succeed. And guess what I have that you can never take from me? My knowledge, right? So now I can go anywhere and I can take everything that I've learned, and you can't take it from me. And you can't mess it up or anything like that. And so I would welcome the extra loads. I would never complain about it. I would just say, okay, this is some more stuff that I need to learn. You know, um, I have a lot of knowledge in my head, from those experiences, and I'm always using it. So, connections, everything. So, but that's my journey. And so now I'm retired, and
Before
I,
you before you keep going, because I know there's a lot more.
oh,
I
there's a
mean, I
whole,
can't
yeah,
wait.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to lean into, because I do have, there's a lot of younger social workers who
Hmm.
enjoy the podcast, and I don't even think, and I've been doing this 26 years. the possibility of a social worker getting their principal certification was even a possibility. And I guess I want to, like, from school social work to principal certification.
Hmm.
Is that just in your state, or is that a
Um,
possibility?
that I see, that's a good question. I'm in Illinois. So if you're working in the school system, any employee can go get their, certification. So teachers can get their principal certification. Because it's also because I had a master's, right? Then that gave me the eligibility to go and do more. And so that's how I took advantage of that. And it was really cool. This was just a little hack that I had. I paid the first, let's say 3,000, right? I paid the first 3,000, but my school would reimburse me for, because my pledge was, excuse me, stay with the school for so long, yada yada.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never paid for anything.
Mm.
I would always recycle that money and pay it right back in. So when they gave me back my first 3,000, I would take that money and I'd pay for the next semester. And then they reimbursed me for that and I'd pay for so I only was out probably one fourth of the
Mm-hmm.
money. So if you are strategic in how you do things, and if your school allows it, you can go to school and not have, all of that extra burden. So that was just a hack that I had. But yes,
And I
you
know
can do
another
that.
social worker who she travels. Because she's a school social work, she goes to all the school
Hmm.
social work conferences, and they seem to be nationwide. And she goes and has these fantastic times, and the schools pay for it. So what I'm even hearing is stay where you are, become a master, and then when the opportunities arise, even if it's not a title social worker,
Hmm.
if your vision and your mission is to help students and to help families, move into that space, even if it doesn't say
Yes.
social worker behind your name.
Right. Right. So, and you know what? I'll always have my MSW, and
Mm-hmm.
technically, I have an LSW because Illinois grandfathered us in, especially during COVID. Right. My problem was that I ran into a glitch, and that's what my book is about, the glitch. And in that glitch, I was not able to get the school to actually vouch for, sign off for that LCSW. So I've got it in spirit. I've got the LCSW, but really, I don't have that. And I sometimes think about and figure out how can I go about getting that one thing that's really mine, but I don't have it on paper yet. And then I think about, is it really that important at this point?
That's my question.
Yeah. Is it really that
Is it
important?
really? Because what I'm
Yeah.
looking at is Renita D Davis, author. And
Hmm.
before we hit record, you kept pulling out book after book after book that had your name on it. And I'm like, I want to know more about that. How did you become Renita D Davis, author? And what are your books and what are they about?
Okay. Okay, I'll start with this one. This is the beginning of my journey. This is just a photo book. We all do them, right? We get all these photos on our phone and we want to put them in a book. So we will have them and get them off our phone. Well, that's what I did. All of the little Facebook things that I had, I decided that I was going to create myself my own devotional. Now, so one year, 2020, I think I'm going to say 2021. I think it's 2021. 2021, I was so full of gratitude just to be alive, right? And in that space, I wanted to do something because my birthday was coming up. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm just so thankful that I have another year, another day. And this idea came to me that for the month of January, up until my birthday, which is the last day, um, I was going to write something, post something on Facebook about just a word of encouragement. And that's what this book is. It's all of those 31 posts, and then I just added a couple of pictures. So this is my 31 day. This is my personal devotional for me. Nobody else but me. It's all about me. My face is in here. Everything says Renita Davis, right? So this was the beginning, and I decided I was going to take a book challenge.
Mhm.
So I have a cousin who is also an author, right? Actually, I have two, but the female cousin, she she got me connected to this publisher, and they were doing this thing, and I decided to step in. I stepped in, and they were talking about how to write a book and all of this sort of stuff, and she talked about journals and devotionals, and I thought, wait a minute, I have one. I already have a book. So this book, The Measure of Gratitude, is actually this book, but inside of it, it's 31 days. And what I did was I took my time. If you saw the first book, this was the post that I did. Then I sat down and I found a scripture. Then I sat down and wrote a dialogue for it. And that's how this was born. But this is really this. So I sat down and every Sunday and just started writing. My writing time is early in the morning. Early in the morning. And again, you got to remember, it's during COVID time. So, church was not happening like we always did. So I was at home and I was able to do all these things. So that's how this one came. And this one, I am a best-selling author.
And put
It's,
it in the camera so we can see it. And what's the name of it?
it's
Renita.
called A Measure of Gratitude, a 31-day devotional.
Renita D Davis, A Measure of Gratitude, 31 day to vote. Come on through, Renita.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though you see this line over here, this is the tester that we get. When you first get it, they send you one that says not for resale, but this is the first print, right? So,
And before you move on, I want to just say congratulations on being a best-selling author
thank
on your
you.
first book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
It was so cool because now if you get this book, you're going to get that best-selling author emblem on there. This was an early one. So but yeah, so this was my first one, and even today I still use this book because it's 31 days. It doesn't give a day. It just says day 1, day 2, day 3. So for today, let's say today is the 8th. So if I was reading this book the first time, I would go through it for the whole 31 days. Now I just go to the 8th and look at what it says. And it says, "Thank you, Lord. I have peace even when the goofy is running amok." And every time I read this on the date that
Mm-hmm.
that I choose, it always fits. I just had the goofiest things happen to my car, right? So, it's like it the thing that I found about this book is that it meets you where you are. That is a guarantee that it meets you where you are on the day that you pick this book up. And it's a book to help you get in that space of gratitude. And that's what it's about. As you go through it, your ability to shift that mindset is amazing. It
Yes.
is. And so, yeah,
I live in
it's a
gratitude.
keeper.
I write 5 to 10 things every day in my journal that things I'm grateful for. And I know because I do that, I continue to get blessed. And so
Hmm.
to have a structure of a 31 day gratitude structure, and like you said, it hits home on the day that you're reading it.
Yes.
I can't wait to get my copy. Are you going to give us a link so that we can put it in the
Oh,
podcast
I sure
description?
will. I sure will. Definitely, definitely, because this book is on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, all of my books are on Amazon. I haven't done a book launch for the Book of Hope yet, but I was trying to figure out how to do it instead of doing the full-fledged book launch because of time constraints. I am getting my doctorate. So I'm writing my dissertation, and even now I'm talking to you, my brain is like, okay, you got to get back to that dissertation. Because hopefully, no, not hopefully.
Nah, yeah.
So December the 13th of 2025, I will also have a puffy hat.
Oh, come on through.
So yeah,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes, yes. And
Congratulations.
yeah,
And
and
before we
that's
get, before, because I want to hear about the Book of Hope.
oh, the
Are
Book
you,
of Hope.
yeah,
Okay.
so it hasn't
All
been
right.
launched yet.
Okay, so it's published.
It's published.
It's
Okay.
published, but I haven't. And usually, what a launch means is just that I present it to the, to present it to the public. And
Okay.
usually, when that happens, you give a like maybe a little discount, for everybody that buys it while I'm online, that kind of a flash thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really thinking about doing that because not only does that, get the book out there, but that's how you get to best-selling status.
Mm,
And I'm looking at this and I'm like, you know what, God, you brought me through this thing that I talk about in here, and I want this to be a bestseller for you.
yes.
So I will be putting that out. I'm going to really try to do it within the next week. And I'll post it like on my social medias, and just really do a recording, um, and then put it out there. And then everybody
And
that's
our
wanting to,
podcast listeners will
yes,
also be able to. That is
yeah,
so. What I'm looking at, and hold it up again, the Book of Hope by Renita D Davis. What I'm seeing is HOPE is an acronym. Are
yes.
you able to share what that acronym means for us?
Okay, so yes. First of all, my mom's maiden name is Hope.
Mm,
Okay. And this picture
mm-hmm.
is actually, I took this picture. I have a tray up here, up on my desk. That's the picture.
Mm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So, but my mom's maiden name is Hope. So the word hope is very dear to me. But
Yeah.
in this, it's helping you to overcome, plan, and execute.
Mm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
So, because that's what I had to do in the situation that I talk about in this book, I had to recognize where my help came from, figure out who my tribe was. I had to overcome some obstacles. I had to learn how to plan. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had to execute that plan. And all of that, God was in the midst of all of that. There are so many little nuances that occurred in this book, in my story, um, that definitely, it was nobody but God, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know that there was an intervention at this space to get to this space. And yeah, and so the first time I wrote it, it was an ebook. And
Mm-hmm.
I could not tell the story completely. I just wrote the steps on how I did this thing. So I talked about, what help means. I talked about what overcoming means. I talked about how to create a plan. I've talked about what you do to execute, which is really your rinse and repeat, right? But this book literally has all of those components, but I also telling you the story behind how this happened and how I actually used each one of those things to get the result that I did
To where you are now, and
to
I'm
where I am now.
thinking because you alluded to the clinical licensure and that being part of this hope
Hmm.
help overcome, plan, and execute work that you had to do. And I'm thinking about all the social workers who've taken that test and haven't passed it, especially those who look like me and you,
Hmm.
brown and black social workers. And this book sounds like it would be the perfect, inspiring, encouraging book for those who feel like they are supposed to have that thing,
Hmm.
that clinical license. And maybe feeling stagnant because that thing hasn't happened for them. But yeah,
Right.
look at you, Renita D. Davis, author with 3 books sitting in front of you, and getting your working on your
Right.
dissertation, about to get that PhD behind your name. There are so many possibilities on this planet, including your principal certification. Not
Right.
even thinking you're a social worker, but now you're principal over a school. There are so many possibilities
There are so many things
other
that I can
than that
do. Yes.
one license. I, I
Yes.
I honored the license. Obviously, I
Yes.
have it, but there are so many other possibilities. And your book, Hope, speaks to help overcoming, planning, and
And
executing
executing.
on all
Yes.
of those possibilities.
Yes. 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 So it is, and honestly, it's a transparent story
Mm-hmm.
about, and really, it's the reason why I am retired now, because at the end of the day, God said, close the door.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant me walking away from what I loved, and that was working in the schools. But I had to walk away from it. And I had to trust him. And I had to believe that me walking away from the thing that I thought was the only thing that I knew how to do, right?
Mm.
But in the process of what I went through, I um, started my own business, built my own website, uh, got uh, I got a certification as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, and I market myself as an educational consultant because I've been in the school for 20 plus years. You know, I don't need a certification for that, right? I've got the credentials, I've got the experience behind me, you
You
know.
have the wisdom. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what was shown to me was that I can build with what he has provided for me.
Which you already have.
Yeah,
Which you already
yeah,
have. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And we'll get the link for that as well.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
That is exciting. So now what I heard you say, because we were moving so fast with all your accomplishments, you're going to be Dr. Renita D. Davis by the end of this year.
By the end of this year, December 13th, I will be in Atlanta, Georgia, graduating with my doctorate in ministry,
Mm,
transformational leadership. Now, isn't that crazy, right?
that's beautiful.
Transformational leadership. That's who I
Mm,
am. You
mm-hmm.
know, funny story with that one. I I've always wanted to get my PhD, right? And I used to tell the joke that, yeah, well, I'm take everybody to the airport. This is when everybody could go to the airport, and I'm going to have them announce it. You know, Dr. Renita Davis, you have a phone call, just something so I can hear it in the air, right? And after that, I'm good. You don't have to call me doctor again. I just want to hear it in the air, right? And so I thought about it and I was really looking and I wanted to do sociology because, again, my curiosity about why people do the things that they do and
Mm,
realizing that we're all the same. Sociology teaches you that, we're all the same. And I said at that at that point in time, I said, you know what, God, I really want to go to school, but I want to go free.
yes.
So I started looking for like fellowships and this and that. And something happened where I just had to put it off to the wayside because life was lifing. Well, now I am going to school and I am not paying for it.
Mm,
And the reason I'm not paying for it is not because, somebody just decided to say, hey, I'm going to give you this, but because of all of that excellence that I have, I'm
yes.
able to barter it out. So I work directly with the president of the university. And I work behind the scenes and I do some things for her and just keep everything running. She just recently asked me if I would be the chief. I never remember this title, but it's like the chief operating officer or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I'm kind of like the executive uh, administrative assistant.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I make sure everything is running smoothly, and if people need anything, again, I do things in the background. So so that's how this is happening. Um, so the bulk of what being in school would entail, I am not having to have to pay for that, you know, and that's a blessing.
That
And
is a
when it,
blessing.
yeah, and when it landed in my lap, I thought about it, but when I heard the title, Transformational Leadership, I would be crazy if I didn't take it because it's me all over the place.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
Reborn, reborn. When I think
yes,
about rebirth,
over and over
over and
again.
over again,
Yes.
you are walking your name out. You're
Mhm.
walking our name
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, we're walking our
You're
name out.
walking it
Yeah.
out.
I'm doing
Yes.
us proud, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
doing
And
us
I'm
proud.
also just thinking too with the glitch that happened was also for your good, was also for, yeah,
Yes.
because if you
Yes.
had stayed on that trajectory, you wouldn't have the bandwidth or the space to
Mhm.
be behind the scenes of this university, getting your doctorate paid for
Mhm.
free, become Dr. Renita D. Davis on December 13th, 2025.
Yeah.
Had that glitch not
Yeah.
happened a few years
Had
back.
that glitch had not happened. And I don't want to be a spoiler alert so nobody actually reads the book, but that's some of the things that I talk about because, sometimes we think that trouble comes our way and it's the enemy. Sometimes we get in our own way. And sometimes God will pick you up and say, you know what, you weren't listening the first time. Let me help you out to get where you're supposed to be, right? And so we have to, at that point in time, we have to really just like take the punishment and say, okay, what do I do next?
Mhm.
And keep it moving. And through this whole thing, that I'm not going to say anymore, but yeah, it's a very interesting story. And at the end, there's a couple of sentences in there at the end that puts a shift in my testimony because that's what this is. This is my testimony of one moment in time.
Mhm.
One moment in time that catapulted me to be sitting here with you.
Amazing. I was
Yeah.
thinking while you were talking, I've been obsessed with Oprah lately, so I've been watching all her commencement speeches that she's done
Hmm.
over the years. And she says repeatedly, there's no such thing as failure. It's just God's way of redirecting us on our divine path.
Yes.
And that's what this feels like.
Yeah.
It was God's redirection for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is so beautiful. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop. We only answered the first question.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm not going to talk
no,
so
it was
much. Okay.
beautiful. It was so inspiring. It was absolutely what we need to hear today, what I need to hear. And again, that was our prayer, right? Is that those who
Hmm.
need to hear this will hear it. But Renita D. Davis, as social workers, we usually have communities or populations that we are passionate about and perhaps work in, like domestic violence, child advocacy, or prison reform. What population are you most passionate about and why? And I think we kind of know that a little bit, but
Um,
why did you
yeah.
get so passionate about it?
I'm going to try to make this short. Um,
Make it what it needs to be.
Growing up, I have always been the one on the bottom end. Um, I was part of an anthology. And in the anthology, the story that I wrote was called Ever Changing. I think it's called Ever Evolving. Okay. And in that story, I talked about how, being the darker of the
Mm,
family, outside of my
mm-hmm,
dad. But when
mm-hmm.
it came to the grandchildren, right, I was the darker one. And the mishandlement, and I just made up a word,
I
that
love it.
has occurred with me is also, and I'm going to use it, is an epigenical way. I know I said that
Mm-hmm,
wrong. Epigenical way that caused me to think and do things and not be and to be very timid, right? And always, I was always the one that was made fun of. I was always the joke of, or I had a half sister who would just do mean things to me, and but I still love my family, right? And so I would keep going blindly back and getting my head bumped. So when I chose my population, I don't think I chose it. I think my population chose me because I could so resonate with those who were at a disadvantage. I think that's why being a part of the special ed department was so passionate for me, because these are the families that don't get everything that they need. And one is because they don't know. And so I took it upon myself to be that advocate for them. Like I said, when it comes to the IEP meetings, I'm asking those questions that I know the mom wants to know that she can't, or she doesn't want, because she doesn't, she's too afraid or too overwhelmed or too, intimidated by the group of people that are supposed to be there, right?
Hmm.
Not knowing her own rights. And so I've always felt that, somebody needed to speak up for them. And so that's what I did. Yeah, they didn't like me in the IEP meetings sometimes.
I'm so glad though
Yeah.
for you doing that. I want to say thank you. Thank you for doing that for those families, for those mamas. I'm not with raising my kids. I wasn't ever part of the IEP meeting, but I remember having to have a meeting with the principal and the assistant principal, and my kid was there. And I remember him walking out and was like, Mom, I didn't know you were going to stand up for me like that. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people could feel intimidated by
Yes.
the authority that these school officials have.
Right.
And if you're not one who knows how to stand up for yourself, you can leave there and your kid who's watching everything you do, it's like, oh, well, she's not going to stand
Epigenetics.
up for me. Yeah. Why
It's
should I stand up for
epigenetics. Yeah.
myself? Yeah,
Yeah. It is,
absolutely.
because now they see that
Mm-hmm.
there is no power. So as they get older, even though the door is open for them to do more, they won't go through because they've been trained. And when I looked up the word epigenetics,
Mm-hmm.
and a friend of mine, we were talking about epigenetics, and I was like, let me look it up, okay? And it's not about something that's genetic, it's more about environment.
Yeah.
So if your child was in that environment and saw that you were powerless, how in the world are they going to feel like they're powerless? The
Absolutely.
likelihood of them is
Mhm,
very slim,
mhm.
so yeah. So that's how I believe it chose me, because I lived it, and I knew I could do good there, in that space. That space right there was where I could do good. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, we just had the Goddesses of Social Work is a supervision community, and as they graduate, they do a presentation. And one of my goddesses, she just did her presentation on social workers and the IEP, and that's exactly what she was talking about. Parents, like you have
Hmm.
all of these rights, know what your rights are, and I'm so proud of social workers trying to empower our parents to know what
Hmm.
their rights are and to stand up for themselves and for their children. And even if the parent isn't ready because of their own experiences of not
Hmm.
being able to stand up for themselves, us as social workers showing the kids, I can stand up for you. I
Right.
can advocate for you could be maybe
Right.
the only model that they see
Yeah.
having that done for. So thank you for that work.
Yeah. I miss sitting down with my middle schoolers, and just having those conversations. It was funny because they would skip class to come in and just talk to me. And so I'm sitting over here trying to be creative to come up with a reason why they're here so I can give them a pass, But, just knowing that they came for the wisdom or they came for the
Mm,
knowledge, they came to talk because it was a safe space,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Thank you for creating that for those babies.
yeah.
Renita, what is one belief about social work that you started on this journey with that you feel has changed the most for you?
Something that has changed. Honestly, I don't think anything, my idea of a social worker, I don't think anything's really changed.
Hmm.
You know, I can't remember exactly, when reading that question. I'm trying to think what did I write? But no.
You said exactly what you're
Yeah,
saying now.
I don't think any because being a social worker was so true to me. And it was part of social work is a calling.
Yeah.
There are some people that think, okay, they're going to go to social work because it's easy and, but you don't get paid what you're worth. And the only payment that you get is to see someone get that aha moment. And that's where you get your payment because you know that you've done everything possible and you have just changed a life. So
Mhm.
I've always had that in me. And so that hasn't changed for me. That hasn't changed for me. I still believe that social workers are like the best thing since sliced bread.
We are, and we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. And everybody needs a social worker. Everybody
Mhm.
needs a social worker or someone that is in that role to help move you forward. Everybody needs one, whether they know it or not.
Absolutely. Regardless of their socioeconomic status, too, I think, too.
Yes.
And I think that was part of how you, when we initially were talking about this question, you said that nothing, your belief hasn't changed, but I think you were expressing that it's been expanded because of all the different types of
Yes.
families and people that you have worked with.
I concur. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I even now I can hear it in my voice. My love for social work, my love for
Mm,
being a social worker. I don't regret it not one bit because even though I'm retired, I am still social working, you know? I'm still social working because it's ingrained in me. My
it's
antenna
who
is
we
up.
are.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
antennas, and I used to work for the Department of Children and Family Services for a couple of years, and the knowledge that I received there. So I'm even more in tune to the needs of
Mhm.
families, and even when I'm in public, that DCFS antenna is still up because I'm looking and I'm watching. And, I can't do anything, right? Because I'm not DCFS, so I can't, intervene. But as a human being, I can at least see it and I can pray about it, right? If there is something I can do, I will. Um, I think one time my brother and I were in a hospital and there was a father, and you could tell his daughter had a special need, and he was really really frustrated, and without thinking I automatically went over there and I said, can I help you? What's is there? Well, she won't come outside or she won't come with me, and she plopped on the ground. So I plopped on the ground too, and so I asked her what was going on. A long story short, she wanted McDonald's. So I went to the dad and I said she wants a burger. And and just the relief on his face because she couldn't articulate it or either he wasn't listening, you know.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, I mean the funniest story that I have is when I was in an elementary school and there was this little Spanish speaking baby. It was kindergarten. And again, Mrs. Davis, he keeps crying. We don't know what's wrong. We can't understand him. He's plopped on the floor. So I sat on the floor with him. And I asked him, I said, what's wrong? And so he's talking in Spanish, and I'm not hearing a word and understanding and everything. But the one thing I knew to do is to repeat the last word he said
Mm,
in Spanish. And that's what
mm,
I did. And he was like, see, see. And he blah, 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 again. And I'm like, oh Lord. And I kept doing it. At the end of that little encounter, he gave me the biggest hug and he ran off playing.
mm,
I have
mm.
no idea what I said to this child. I have no idea what his problem was, but whatever it was, it got fixed.
He needed
You
you to
know,
listen.
yeah,
Hmm.
because someone
Hmm.
listened.
That's
Because
it.
someone listened. So yes,
Hmm.
I love social workers. I my hat's off when social worker month comes up. I'm always celebrating, you know.
It's
So
my favorite time of year.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes. And you know what? I hope that you know that even though you've retired, like you said, social work isn't a career or a title or
It's a
profession. It's a
lifestyle.
calling.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
it's a
a
life.
lifestyle. And so retired or not, once a social worker, always a social worker.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And that's the thing that I've learned. So even in the career that I'm in now, you
Hmm.
know, I'm tapping into my social work skills. You know, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, it's what I love.
Yeah. My favorite social workers are those who love social work. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are coming to our final question. And it's just been such a joy, Renita. I know we tried 3 or 4 times to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the
Uh,
last one I bailed on you and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't look at
but
yeah.
you know what? You're having your book launch or if
Yeah.
something. Yes, and I'm so glad we
Yeah.
got to discuss that because I don't even think that was on the agenda if we had did it when we were scheduled to do it. We
Right.
are doing
Right.
it exactly when we're supposed to because
Yeah.
people needed to hear that
Yeah.
story today. But my question isn't really a question. It's just you have so much wisdom. You have so much knowledge. You have 20 plus years of being a social worker. Like I said, we have social workers of all ages, but
Mhm.
mostly students who are listening to this podcast. What would be some final words of wisdom that you would like to leave them with?
You know, that always changes. It
Mm,
always changes. But I think the one thing that I would say to someone who is interested in social work or just social work in general, continue to do what you love and don't be afraid. You know, there are so many avenues that being a social worker that you can do. You know, it's not just, you know, that one thing that got you through the door. You
mhm.
know, like we said, you know, it's a lifestyle, it's a calling, and being a social worker just helps everybody. So I would say continue to do what you love, stay focused, and what you do will come back to you, especially when it's the good. Yeah.
Absolutely. As evidenced by, which is one of my favorite phrases, as evidenced by you getting your doctorate paid
Yeah.
and becoming Renita D Davis,
Yeah.
PhD, by the end of this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations on all your wins. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for the work you've done over the last 2 decades, loving on these babies and supporting these families.
My
Your life
pleasure.
matters.
Yeah. My
Your life
pleasure.
matters. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You had asked me about how people can reach me.
Yes. Hmm.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I have a website. It is www.ichp move.com. That's my website. You can also reach me on Facebook. I have a stream that I do every Monday morning, and it's called Faith Cafe. And you can watch it on YouTube because I'm trying to transition into the podcast. But right now, all of my streams are there, and that's at Renita D Davis. So there's two D's in there, underscore IC, no, sorry, at Renita D Davis underscore Faith Cafe. I'm sorry, I was about to give you something else. My Facebook You can just look up real Renita D Davis. That's because I got hacked and I had to restart all over again. So it's real Renita D Davis. That's all one word. Um, I also have an Instagram and a LinkedIn account. And again, everything is either ICHP, which is International Community Hope Project. Again, there's the hope again,
Mhm.
um, which is my LLC. And so you can either find me there on LinkedIn the same way. Just look for Renita D. Davis, Faith Cafe, iChip. You will find me. You will find me.
Awesome. Awesome. And you will also be sharing all of those links with me so
Yes,
that we can put them in the podcast description
yes,
box as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
So people will be able to access the books and how to reach you on all of your social media platforms, including your
yes.
website.
And I love to communicate with others. So yes, please drop me a line, talk, just say, hey girl, hey, I'm good, you know. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we will make sure we do that. And just a FYI, I'm loving your vision board in the background. The Goddesses of
Thank
Social
you.
Work, we have vision board parties every year. And
Oh
so to see
wow.
that this whole time, I'm like, I love someone who has a vision and keeps it on their wall because that's what we talk about
Yes,
all the time.
that's my roadmap right now. That is a 2022 vision board, and I didn't do another one because this one is actually this was the second one because I did 2021 and then my 2022. It is such a roadmap to where I'm at right now. I would probably put the same things up there, and I'm just watching them happen. You know,
Love it.
yeah,
And that's what Habakkuk 2 and 2 says. Write the vision down and make it
make it
plain
plain so
so
that
that
yeah,
I can see it and run with it. You got
and
to put
run
it
with
in a
it.
place where
Yes.
you can see it on a daily basis so
Yeah.
that
And
spirit knows to go and do that thing
and
for
you
you.
don't see it, but let me see if I can get this without being too difficult.
Oh,
I
yes.
have next.
Next.
So
Yeah.
when I get tired of doing whatever I'm doing, I turn around and I look at that wall and it says next. And it's not the next of, being sarcastic, but I'm preparing for my next. And that
Mm,
reminds me that I need to turn back around and I need to start the grind again. So yeah, I have that's my next. I'm always working toward my next because there's a next. There is a
gotta
next.
encourage, you gotta keep
Yeah.
encouraging yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Renita, thank you so much for joining the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. It has been such
Oh,
a pleasure.
it has been a pleasure. We will definitely stay connected.
Yeah, we will.
We're too kindred. We
I
yeah,
know. We
yeah,
the
we have
same
to. Yeah.
first and last name.
Yes. Yes. That's the crazy thing.